Hey Mike, how's it going, man?
Without a lot of opinions.
Welcome to a RTD interview. So I'm excited to have a guest, a local now, Mr. Ryan. He's a resident in Medellin, originally from the States, and so wanted to sit down with him to get his perspective on the transition from stateside, even though he goes back and forth. But just give him a chance to give me, as well as you guys, the lay of the land and some pros, some cons, some good, the bad, all that about Medellin, Colombia thus far. So Ryan, thank you for taking time to join me. So,
yeah, man. Great to be here.
So for those, give us a little bit of your, quick synopsis of what line of work you in, how you started, and then how you got here. And then we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I'm from San Francisco, California, and I've been here on and off for about 3.5 years now. And basically, we all know how things are going in California. The prices are very high, and I wanted an opportunity to have a lower cost of living and a better quality of life. And so my line of work is I'm a systems engineer, and I work for a company in California, and I basically build infrastructure, cloud infrastructure for software companies and for all kinds of different companies. And so when I was in SF, I was working about 30 to 40% remote at the time, just avoiding traffic and all that kind of stuff. So now what I'm able to do down here is I work remote about 80–90% of the time. So every once in a while for a project to get started, they'll call me back and I'll go and I'll work on site with clients in SF or LA or what have you, all up and down California. But for the most part, I work from here. I work from my home that we're in right now, and internet access is great here, and the cell networks work, and so I'm able to do that from here very comfortably, living in Medellin like more and more people are doing right now.
That's good. Thanks for sharing that. So, as you mentioned, we'll get into some of the problems, and so part of me wanting to get out on the road and give people a different perspective is because of, as I mentioned, the living conditions and the cost of living stateside is becoming problematic for a lot of people. So along the coastal regions, people are being, for the most part, forced out of their housing due to just the increased housing costs and things of that nature. So San Francisco, I've yet to go there, but I've heard a lot of subscribers or whatnot are from that region. And so based upon what you see when you go back, because you still have, you mentioned you have a house there still.
Yep.
And so give us a little bit of the transition over the last 10 years, perhaps, of what you've noticed that has become problematic for the city of San Francisco, perhaps.
Yeah, so I mean, the change is just dramatic. It's just tremendous. I've actually been in and out of San Francisco for about 20 years. I first got there for school, and when I got there, it was just completely different from what it is now. It was a town of artists and musicians and freaks and weirdos and gay people, along with professionals and engineers and tech people. But nowadays, what it is overwhelmingly tech and engineers, and I am an engineer, and so I'm not trying to complain or put down that type of thing, but there is just tremendous growth with Google, Facebook, Snapchat, Tinder. All of those companies are there. Uber, Lyft, all of them are there, and so it has just a tremendous draw for engineering talent all over the world. They're all coming there to work for these companies, and they're all making a lot of money. And so the cost of real estate has it's just astronomical. The rents that people are paying and the cost for property there. So I bought a place in the Mission District about 8 years ago, and I've remodeled it twice. and the value of this property over 8 years of time, it's nearly tripled. It's nearly tripled. I bought it, for about $500K. It's now close to $1.5 million, and I'm renting it, and it's embarrassing the amount of money that I'm renting it for. It's actually absurd what people have to pay to live in the Bay Area. So I went through some life changes, and I just wanted to live a cheaper lifestyle. I wanted to live good. Obviously, we all want to live good, right? So, so I had been checking out Latin America, various parts of Latin America, and Mexico, Argentina, Cuba, Peru, and Colombia was on the list. It was on the list. It was a little bit lower on the list, but I had some buddies that were living here, and when I came to Colombia, I immediately knew that I liked it. And then when I got to Medellin, because Medellin was my last stop, I was just really impressed with the infrastructure here, with the people, with the overall quality of life. I think it's like a first world city and maybe a second world country. And it just seems very good, a very good quality of life to me.
Understandable. Now, so having been here now, you transitioned back and forth still, but you're here now. And so what's been your take on living here now? So you bought some property here, now you're in it. And so what's your take now as far as safety, just some of the benefits now of living in this particular region that you're in now, and surrounding outskirts I've yet to go to, but I heard the good and bad about Medellin. What's been your experience thus far in this area?
It's obviously very different from living in the States, right? So you have the language difference, language barrier.
How's your Spanish?
My Spanish is good.
Okay.
That's when I first got here. I spent basically a year in private lessons, not straight through that year, but I would go 3 months at a time, 2 months at a time. And I really focused on my Spanish a lot. My Spanish was not good when I got here. Now my Spanish is good. I mean, I speak it every day. My girlfriend is from here, and so I obviously speak it with her and speak it when I'm out in my day-to-day life. But I work in English. So you have the language barrier. I mean, for here you just have a lot of international stuff going on in this neighborhood. So we're in a neighborhood that's called, we're in a district of the city that's called El Poblado, which is kind of the more affluent part of the city. And then specifically, we're in an area that's called Provenza, Parquejeres, where is basically the main restaurants and the nightlife. And so you have just a lot of international people here, a lot of international cuisine, bars, restaurants, all within walking distance. So very walkable. That part is great. And then you mentioned the surrounding area. So Medellin proper has about 2 million people. The entire valley here with Envigado, Sabaneta, Bello, other municipalities here, you have 4 million people in this valley. So it's a lot of people. It's quite large. The surrounding areas are very cool. There's just small pueblitos, small little cities outside. And the other thing I would say about this area that's really impressive is just the landscape, right? Everything is green. It's super lush. It's almost like you're living, it feels a little bit like Hawaii, the lushness of it. It's like super green with all this plants and stuff. And that's intermixed with the city. So it just has, if you like nature and you like spending time outside doing hikes and that sort of thing, this is a great place for that, because it feels just super lush, almost a little bit like a jungle. But then you have the city element to it as well.
I was impressed when I arrived the other day and was coming through the tunnel, And as soon as we exited the tunnel, the taxi guy was like, "Look, I looked." And to oversee the entire valley,
Yep.
and to see all the greenery, I was like, wow, like it just was, yeah, it blew me away. So I was excited to get down into the city life, and then I saw all the hustle and bustle of crazy traffic and stuff like that is common for these areas. So now I want to touch on a little bit of the economy, so cost of living. So we know stateside is very expensive. I've seen a lot of retirees. Like it's to the point where, is there such thing where this area here primarily can be overcrowded with tourists that's looking for a more affordable lifestyle, and I wondered what would the impact be amongst the locals or whatnot. That's one thing I'm curious to find out what your thoughts is. But also from the retirement community, cost of living is a lot cheaper. If you don't mind sharing with us, based upon rough figures of living in this area in comparison to what it might be in San Francisco, groceries, food, water, gas. I mean, what's some of the monthly expenditures, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah. So what I tell people is it's basically 3 to 1. So if you walk into a bar in San Francisco and you buy a beer, you buy maybe a local artisanal beer, you're looking at $10 to $12, right, for a beer, minimum, I would say.
Yeah.
Here you walk into a bar and you buy a local artisanal beer that's made here in Medellin, it's going to cost you $3. So as long as you're not purchasing a lot of imported stuff that's made abroad, because that's heavily taxed, the import tax is kind of high. For that sort of stuff, if you're buying like a craft cocktail, you will pay $10 for it because it's imported.
Yeah.
But if you're going out and you're having a meal here in nice restaurants, you can expect to pay 1/3, I would say, of what you would pay in San Francisco or New York or the high cities, the high cost cities in California or in the United States. The same could be said for property, although maybe that percentage is actually lower, right? So this place that I'm living in here, I bought it, I remodeled it, I furnished it. Maybe all in, I'm at 150K, probably lower than that. There's no way you can get anything close, for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,000 square foot place in any city. I don't know. Maybe if you're in the Midwest or that's a little bit different. But this place in San Francisco or New York is, I don't know, $1 million, $800,000. I don't know, but it's not. It's maybe 1/4 of that price here. The other thing I would say, you mentioned retirees. So Colombia in South America, I think that they're of the top 30 hospitals or so. 10 to 15 of them are in Colombia, and maybe half of those are in Medellin. So medical is very good here and very inexpensive. There's a lot of medical tourism here. So people coming down to have various surgeries or have plastic surgery or that sort of stuff. So the medical is a great thing. Weather is fantastic for retirees because they call this place the land of the eternal spring. It does not go, if it goes below 70 degrees, the paisas, that's the local people here, they're saying que frío, it's super cold, that's at 68 or 67 degrees. And the same thing happens when it goes, above 80, 85. They're saying que calor. It's like super hot. So you're really looking at a temperature range almost between maybe 67, 68 degrees and 80, 83. You're looking at a 15-degree spread there. And so, I mean, look at this day, right? Beautiful sunshine. We're looking out at, the valley, the hills on the other side. We've got tall, red brick buildings here, so the architecture lends itself to the aesthetics of this place, right? You mentioned coming in over the valley and just how impressed you just see this beautiful spread of this valley with really green, lush background, with red brick kind of architecture popping off the green background. It's like super impressive, super aesthetically, pleasing, and so that's kind of what you get with Medellin.
Now, living here now, for those that might be curious as to, say, like the tax situation, the government, there's like anything that's worthy of mentioning of this that might not be something that's well known about Medellin or Colombia in general, or moving here?
Yeah, I would say the tax situation might be one of the downsides. Because if you spend more than 180 days in Colombia, you are a tax resident, and you will be taxed by Colombia, and so you are theoretically supposed to pay your taxes. There are a lot of Americans and a lot of foreigners that are here that do not file, and I would say that that's going to be problematic moving forward. Having said that, the taxes are not high, and you can file, and you can basically deduct the taxes that you pay in the United States. So myself and most of my friends that file, we're not paying that much in tax here.
Is it a tier structure according to your income earned abroad or here, or how is it overall?
Yeah, it's tiered, and then like I said, you deduct what you pay in the United States. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with this or if your viewers are familiar with this, but there is it's called the Foreign Earned Income Exclusion. That is what digital nomads take advantage of. So also other folks that are foreign residents can take advantage of that tax credit, which is it's $100,000 tax credit. So it is hugely advantageous to take advantage of that tax credit, and that's what I'm doing. Because I am a bona fide resident of Colombia. I do move around a fair amount. I spend some time in Mexico. I go back to the States when I have to for work and to visit family, but this is my home base. So I take advantage of that, and I'm paying significantly less taxes than what a U.S. resident would pay.
Interesting.
Just to give you a quick rundown on the apartment and some of the remodeling I've done here. So most of the inside looked like this kind of wood. And so it was somewhat dated. It was actually really kind of 80s, almost 70s looking in here. This building is 20 years old, and so the apartment was original. And this wood just is not, super appealing to us in this day and age. And it just felt really kind of closed off. This was closed off, and then it was closed off to there. And you can see how we just opened this up. I believe this was closed off, if I remember correctly. This is kind of like a little laundry area. The thing is, this was a 1,000 square foot apartment, and it was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. So what I did was I took out a wall right here. There was an L-shaped wall right here, and there was a 3rd bedroom. So we just knocked that down to create this open space where you see the dining room. And you can tell that, the Colombians, a lot of the spaces are very small. You like New York City type spaces. So we just opened this up. This place was completely gutted. We changed the floors, we painted the walls, we removed all of the old wood. So I have a smaller guest room right here of the valley. So pretty good view. And then we got another bath here, master bath, that's still kind of small, but bigger than the other bath.
All right. So give us some of the advantages of living in Medellin or Colombia in general that you've come to appreciate,
Right.
being someone from the stateside?
So a couple things. Travel. One thing I really like about Colombia is you're able to move around in Colombia really easily, and there's other beautiful cities, other really cool places. Cartagena being one of them. It's like a world-class, awesome city. It's on the coast. You get a totally different vibe. The architecture is old, and it's there's a good restaurant and party scene there, and it's one of the original kind of outposts in the New World, right? So Cartagena, maybe San Juan, Puerto Rico, maybe Havana, Cuba, but Cartagena is awesome. You have Bogota, you have Cali, you have other smaller cities, and you can really fly from Medellin to these other places for about $75 round trip.
I heard about that.
So that is just awesome to be able to get to move around. The same thing is that Colombia is not that far from the States, right? So you can get back to the States within about 10 hours. If you're in Argentina, you're looking at
definitely an overnight trip.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
The other thing is you can fly direct from here to Madrid and get over to Europe kind of relatively easily for not that much. It's
a little bit cheaper here, you think, than stateside, or it's definitely from San Francisco, but I imagine East Coast would be cheaper. But
yeah, from East Coast I would say it's probably about the same.
Okay.
But I think they have daily direct flights from here to Madrid, so you can get to Europe and then you can jump from Madrid, and then you have Mexico's close, Peru's relatively close, so you have that. You're not just stuck here in Medellin. You can do a lot of different stuff moving around from here with this place that's your home base.
Yeah, so just sitting out here on the patio area, and so getting a chance to see, like, your viewpoint is very impressive. Like, so how you guys will see via video or whatever, but as we get ready to draw towards the end, I'm curious to find out, a lot of people want to know about, Mike, where are the coin shops and things of that nature. So I've Googled some things, haven't been able to find much. So from a precious metals standpoint, or just minerals mining itself, are you familiar with anything down here?
Yeah, I'm not an expert, but I do know that emeralds, green emeralds, are big here. They do mine them, and they're generally less expensive here in Colombia. There is mining of gold, and so you can purchase gold here and purchase jewelry here at a fraction of the cost that you can in the United States. And I do have, or I've come across investors here that are big into mining, and so they're out mining in the Colombian mountains in various places. And from what I understand, it's lucrative. And there's also oil here. So one of the largest exports for Colombia is oil, similar to Venezuela, but not to the extent of Venezuela. But the Colombian peso is somewhat linked to the health and the price of oil on the market, so that's big here. Another thing that might be interesting to your viewers about more specifically about Medellin and this region is there is a huge amount of flower production here. So many of the exotic flowers and roses and what have you in the United States come from this region of Colombia, and specifically there is a large flower festival here in Medellin that happens, I believe it's in the month of July. It's called the Feria de las Flores, the flower festival, and there's large parades here. There's basically free parades, and you can go on tours in the mountains outside here and see how they produce farm basically flowers. So that's a huge export from this region to the United States.
Interesting. That's very interesting. So I'm happy to hear about that. So as I mentioned, when I Googled coin dealers or whatnot, nothing came up that was like something I wanted to take a taxi ride to go see.
Yeah. So here in Medellin, I'm not aware of places that sell them wholesale. but I have seen them in Cartagena. So within the walled city, the old part of Cartagena, I've seen some dealers of jewelry there, and they had a kind of a large selection of emeralds, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, that's it. So I want to touch on another thing that just came to mind, Venezuela. And so I was out eating yesterday, and just eating, and I set myself up because I sat on the outside and enjoyed the fresh air, and at least 10 people came up to me, por favor, you know, me hungry, comida. So they just begging, I'm like, sorry. Right. So you've been in and out of Medellin for a while now. So what's that like, given the fact that I'm here in Venezuela, of course, they have water issues over there, but from Venezuela to Colombia, what's the impact thus far, what you've seen, and where do you think it might go?
Yeah, I mean, it's not good, and it's probably getting worse, I would say. You know, first off, I have a number of Venezuelan friends. I love the Venezuelan people. I have friends in San Francisco that's, you know, have heritage from Venezuela. It's really bad, you know, terrible what's going on. It's sad to see because it's a beautiful country. They have natural resources. They have a lot of educated people. So it's terrible. What we see here in Colombia is basically mass immigration from Venezuela. So many of the servers and the folks working in restaurants are Venezuelan. My housekeeper here is a young lady, a young Venezuelan girl, and her husband and her family have relocated to Medellin. Colombia is taking them in. They're allowing them to come into Colombia, and I would say that there's over there's millions of Venezuelans in all of Colombia right now, and I think that it might be placing a little bit of a strain on the infrastructure, but I don't think it's negatively impacting Colombia at this time. So Colombia is allowing that immigration and trying to do the best that they can to help out the Venezuelan people, and I think that it is returning the favor, basically, if you will. So during the very difficult days, the Pablo Escobar days here, the same thing, it's my understanding that the same thing happened, that a lot of Colombians left Colombia because of the violence, because of stuff going on here, and they went to live in Venezuela. And Venezuela did not, my understanding is they did not block Colombians from coming in. They let them enter in, and they let them stay there for a period of time. And what we see now that things have stabilized and the country economically is going up and things are getting better, is that Colombians are returning to Colombia from various parts, from the United States, from Venezuela, and that's been happening over a long period of time. And you're seeing Venezuelans come in here to just live a better life.
Yeah, yes, sir. Well, Ryan, I appreciate you taking time to give us the lay of the land from your perspective, and definitely I'm enjoying what I see. So first time here, won't be my last, that's for sure. So, but thank you for taking time for us.
Thank you.